Houston ain't got no problem. But what about this year's Trojans? And I've got some news and notes from the Trojan Olympics, spring game, whatever you want to call it.
You are Locked On USC, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Hulkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC part of the Locked On Network, your first listen every day. Whether you are watching the show on YouTube, you know the rule. Download this podcast, pick your platform. It's always going to be free. I'm always going to appreciate your support. This episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox. No console needed. Head to amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. Safe to say, USC had a pretty darn good weekend, right? Jalen Smith highlighted the draft. The Trojans closed out their spring camp with the Trojan Olympics. And they even got a wide receiver one, that caliber level player, out of the transfer portal. We're going to talk about all that on this episode of Locked On USC. We're going to start with the draft review. USC has now had, this is still a record. Only Michigan can make the same claim. USC has had at least one player drafted in every NFL draft since 1939. Like I said, only Michigan can make that claim. And so when cornerback Jalen Smith was selected by the Houston Texans in the third round, USC actually extended that active streak with having at least one player selected in the first three rounds of the NFL draft. They're the only program that can make that claim. The 2025 draft, I think it's really, if you were to hold a mirror up to what Coach Riley inherited, hold the mirror up to that, I think this draft is a real good reflection of that. Only 3 players were drafted. Only 3 players heard their names called starting Thursday night through Saturday. That's not good. You had Jalen Smith. He was taken with a 33rd pick of the third round, 97th overall, again, by the Houston Texans. Woody Marks wasn't too far behind him. He was taken with the 14th pick in the fourth round, 116th overall, again, by the Houston Texans. Might as well start calling them the Houston Trojans. And then finally, Jonah Monheim. He had to sweat it out to the 7th round. Jacksonville picked him up. Look, the last time I remember Jacksonville's, they might have drafted a USC lineman since then, but the last one that I can remember had a pretty good career over there. You might remember the name, Tony Baselli. Yeah, well, now it's Jonah's turn. And again, I didn't do any research. I didn't go back throughout the years from Tony Baselli until now to go through each one of Jacksonville's drafts, but that's the last one I remember. But going back to Houston, the Houston Trojans, I mean, I don't know who in their organization is a big Trojan fan, big USC fan, but it's been going on for a while. I mean, go back to when Sean Cody was drafted. You got Brian Cushing. And then just in the last couple of years, Kalen Bullock, Solomon Byrd, Jalen Smith, Woody Marks, Robert Woods joined the team last year. Somebody in that organization likes what USC does. And so, again, those were the guys who were drafted. Those 3 names, Jalen Smith, Jonah Monheim, Woody Marks. It's not a good number. But USC, they also had some guys who signed some free agent contracts. A lot of times, that works out best because as a free agent, you can look for the team that probably gives you the best opportunity. So you had guys like, let's start with this. Pete Carroll. The Las Vegas Raiders, Pete Carroll knows where to look if you want NFL talent. So he came back to USC. He's teaching there. He's probably been checking out guys like Greedy Vance. Well, he's going to go try and make that roster. What about John Humphrey, the cornerback who transferred from UCLA to USC? He's going to give it a shot in Vegas. And let's stay in the AFC West. The Kansas City Chiefs came after 2 USC Trojans. So the first one, you got Jacoby Covington. He's going to try and make the roster at cornerback. And then the Ray Guy Award winner, Eddie Chapliski. He will be Kansas City's next punter. And then one more player so far has signed has a free agent contract, Jamil Muhammad. Yeah, he doesn't even have to change his addresses. He's going to go try and make a go of it with the LA Rams. So the one name I didn't mention, and I was hoping to see sign up, somewhere. And again, it's still got time. I'm hoping Kyle Ford can make it happen. I'm hoping anybody who has the opportunity who played at USC can make it happen. But just a personal favorite of mine. Again, Kyle Ford, hoping it happens. Well, again, what I'd like to see is each one of those names that I just mentioned, hope that each one of them can stick, get a chance to make a go of it in the NFL. That would be outstanding. Considering where USC's program was to where it is now or where it's going, again, I think that kind of shows you what USC's been dealing with, as far as the roster talent. So as the names I mentioned, they were either drafted or those guys signed as free agents in the 2025 cycle. Of those guys, of all those names, whether they're free agent signings or draft, only Jalen and only Jonah were homegrown products. In other words, they finished what they started at USC. And I get it. I know other guys have transferred, but USC should always have more than just 3 guys drafted. Always. Always. And again, sure, USC can claim Woody Marks, but let's just be honest about that. He was pretty much developed by the time he arrived at USC. He came over from Mississippi State after playing for 3 years. With that being said, he did become USC's first 1,000-yard rusher since Ronald Johnson back in, 2017? And I know USC was close last year, the year before with Marshawn Lloyd, and I know they were even closer with Travis Dye. But again, it just kind of shows you this is what USC's, where they're at. They're trying to kind of dig out of that hole. Having just 3 Trojans drafted, let me put that into context for you. Let's do a little bit of a comparison. 2009, that draft. Okay, remember USC's 2018, probably their best defensive team ever, maybe one of the best defensive teams to ever play college football. That team gave up less than 10 points per game. In that draft, 11 guys. Just go back to the 2024 draft, and you had 7 guys drafted, including Caleb, who was the number 1 overall. But a few of those guys were also transfers, guys who USC got out of the transfer portal. So you got to ask yourself, how much did USC's overall record the last 2 seasons, how much did that, play into the NFL execs' decisions as far as, hey, let's go get USC players? Granted, they didn't have a lot of draft eligible guys, but the names I mentioned, I kind of thought, Jacoby would get in there. I found that one a little interesting. I think it really just comes down to, SC's talent level. It doesn't meet USC standard. It was below par. And if USC is NFLU, that's well below par. I don't know how else to say it. I brought up that 2009 draft, how great that USC defense was in 2008. Defensively, USC had just 1 player drafted, just Jalen Smith. And I know there's a lot of you out there who said, Jalen's not even that good. Well, he was out of position. He's a cornerback. He has the versatility to play inside corner, but I think he's a boundary guy. Next year's draft, 2026 draft, I think it's going to be a huge bounce back for USC. Again, some of those guys, they're going to be transfers. But also, keep in mind that that's really Coach Riley's first, cycle of players that he recruited that'll be draft eligible. Remember, he showed up for 2022. I know he didn't have a long time to put together a class, but you can't cherry pick. So 2022 through 2025 are the guys that he's recruited. So with that being said, USC had a good weekend. They had guys drafted, guys had signed free agent contracts. They held their Trojan Olympics spring game scrimmage. I'm not sure what you want to call it, which went over really well. We're going to talk about that a little bit coming up. And also the recruiting. A lot of momentum going right now. Got a lot to talk about. So 2 more segments to go. Stick around. The NBA playoffs are here. The Lakers are down 3-1. I told you it was going to happen. You know what? I'm not watching the Lakers. Anyways, FanDuel, though, is going to give customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel, if you're a new customer, and you place your first $5 bet, you can get $250 in bonus bets if that $5 bet wins. It's that simple. And I love how FanDuel makes betting really easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player prop bets. You can choose from who's going to make the most 3-pointers, who's going to have the steals, who's going to have the most assists. FanDuel has so many ways to bet on your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, check this out. You can combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay, and that's going to give you a chance for a big win. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. So excuse me, the media wasn't allowed to go to the Trojan Olympics, their spring game, Trojan huddle. I'm not sure what they called it. We're going to call it the end of spring camp event day, because that's pretty much what it turned into. They did some 11-on-11 scrimmaging. They did some 7-on-7. They did a whole bunch of stuff. And I told you I was going to have some eyes and ears out there. So throughout the day, when it finally stopped raining, which, by the way, it's incredible. It never rains in Southern California. I cannot remember, honestly, and I've been to quite a few of them. I can't remember the last USC spring football game that it rained. It rains when they hold their pro day. Like USC could pick any day for their pro day, and it's going to rain. It just happens. But for the spring game, never. Well, this was God's way of saying you should have held an annual spring game with the fans, because since you're not, we're going to make it rain. So it wasn't looking good in the morning. It finally cleared away, and they were able to get their work in. So I had some people sending me text messages, calling me up, saying, "Hey, Mark, check this out. You might want to know about this." So here you go. I'm going to pass it along to you, what I can. So some stuff I got to hold back. Too much stuff, in other words. Anyways, they did some 11-on-11, and through the first few series, the name that I kept getting feedback from was, "Hey, Braylon Connolly is balling right now, playing lights out." You like hearing that, right? There was some concern about USC's cornerback situation. Obviously, you're losing Jalen Smith, you're losing Jacoby Covington, you're losing John Humphrey, you're losing a lot of experience. You're returning D. Nicholson, you brought in DJ Harvey, but you want to hear about the younger guys. Well, there's one of them. True sophomore, Braylon Connolly, balling out. Something else. Oh, Josiah Zamora. It's a name we don't talk about a lot, but he is a scholarship player now. I guess there was one play where Eric Gentry was in coverage, and he went for the ball. He didn't get the ball, so Josiah made the catch, and then he took it for a bunch of long yak after that. So he had some nice yards after the catch. Immediately after that, I got, hey, Desmond Stevens had an interception. Hey, Prophet Brown had an interception. I was like, oh, okay. I asked who the quarterbacks were. Before I tell you that, I'll tell you that there was more than just 2 interceptions on the day, and I'm going to leave it there. With that said, both Husan and Jaden had at least one. That's all we're going to go with that one. I will say this. And from everybody who I spoke to, multiple sources said it was a defensive day. The defense won the afternoon. Period. End of story. Full stop. Jakeem Stewart, he got to experience his first spring game atmosphere. Like I said, they did a bunch of 11-on-11 scrimmaging. They did 7-on-7 stuff, a lot of situational. But as far as Jakeem Stewart, quote, he had a couple of tip passes at the line of scrimmage today, and you can see his ability, but you can also see that he's still just a baby out there. And that's coming from source. The first string offensive line, I told you it was a defensive day. The first string offensive line held their own. However, the defensive line's energy, it started to kind of get at them. It started wearing them down as the game went on, as the time went by, the game, whatever you want to call it. I got this quote. The energy through that defensive line is off the charts. They are always communicating, and they cheer on their victories, and they pump each other up. It's contagious. Like, all right, got no problem with that. As far as the second string offensive line, yeah, they didn't have a good day. USC's got a good defense this year, so that's the positive we want to take out of this. That they are just. I'm not saying that the offense didn't make plays. However, by and large, the defense did what it wanted to do. I got a little bit of feedback on who was lining up where. One series, this was the back seven. You had DeCarlos Nicholson at one corner. You had DJ Harvey at another. You had Gentry and Desmond Stevens at linebacker. Prophet Brown at nickel. And then your starting safeties were Kamari Ramsey and Bishop Fitzgerald. I can tell you the backup linebackers, you had Jaden Walker and Anthony Beavers. Sam Heward, he looked good. He moved the ball. I bring that up because the second team, third team offense had trouble moving the ball. So when Sam had the opportunity, he was the one who made things happen. One of the people who was watching the events go on throughout the day said, "Hey, that Waymon Jordan, he's got that Ashton Genty look to him." So I agree with you. It's exactly how I described him. The biggest difference between Waymo and I guess Woody, Waymo was going to get your yards after contact. Woody was more of a guy, if he got through that hole, he picked up 5 yards before you touched him. But he wasn't the strongest guy. He could break tackles, but I think you're going to notice a big difference from Waymon Jordan in that regard. Like I mentioned, no fans in the stands. This was just, excuse me. You had the families of the players. You had a grip of recruits there. You had their family members. You had some coaches as well. This was an exclusive invite-only event. But they had a lot of fun. And that was the best feedback I got, that everything that was going on, everybody was having fun, having a good time. So again, no fans in the stands. And although I would have loved to have had a spring game so I could been up there in the press box watching it go on, whatever. Lincoln Riley and Chad Bowden, they did figure out there are other ways you can close out spring camp without having a spring game. So just kind of remind everybody, when the Coliseum was built, close to 100 years ago, it was built for the Olympics, right? Right. In fact, LA is going to be hosting the Olympics again coming up soon, 2028. So there you go. That'll be the third Olympics that they're hosting. 32, 84, and now coming up again in 2028. So why not play on that theme? So USC held their Trojan Olympics in lieu of the spring game. So they got creative, and they had, like I said, they had a truncated type of scrimmage. And then they got everybody involved, whether it was the players doing some events or the recruits. There was a tug of war. They held a home run derby where the recruits, it looked like, were hitting wiffle balls maybe into the stands. They played a game of dodgeball. There was some tug of war. This is all about, building of that camaraderie, what I've been talking about a lot recently. And now the recruits got to pick up on that. They got to feel that vibe. They got to be a part of the day. So they're watching the players, that's currently on the roster, doing the scrimmage stuff. Well, the recruits aren't just going to stand around the sidelines. Now they got to participate. They got to compete. And not only did they get to do that, then they got to go and barbecue some steaks. Yeah, show off their grilling technique. The Rex Steakhouse showed up with some tomahawks, rib eyes, and you name it, every cut they had. I saw some pictures. I'm sure you might have saw some pictures on social media as well. Yeah. They ate well. So it was a good day all around. It was another great way to end spring camp. The biggest takeaway you want to take from this, though, the defense. They gave the offense something to think about going into summer. Spring camp's over now. They're going to get some time off season next, during May, and then all of a sudden PRPs are going to roll in, and the offenses are going to have to say, "All right, guys, you got the better of us during the spring. Well, we're going to be ready for you come fall camp." So that was the message sent. Get your ish together, offense. They got the pieces. They got the parts. I think they know which 7 to 8 offensive linemen they're going to go with. Now it's just a matter of getting everybody healthy and getting some consistency going. So I think, you know what? I'm okay with that too. I don't mind ending spring camp with the defense in the lead. I'm good with that. I'm fine with that. All of a sudden, USC is a defensive first team. I don't know if that's a little foreign to Lincoln Riley, but he's going to go into his second season in the big conference. He's going to have a defense he can lean on. He's going to have a running game he can lean into. Oh, and he's got another wide receiver he's going to be able to play with. Yeah. One last note before we close out this segment. Local wide receiver from Gardena Serra. He played at Utah last year. In fact, he was tapped to be their number 1 wide receiver in 2025. USC got their 3rd player out of the transfer portal. His name is Zacharias Williams. Again, he played at Serra, Gardena. Coming out of high school, I don't think he was a late bloomer, but his big offers came late in the process. UCLA, Washington, Utah. He chose Utah. Well, now he's coming back home to LA. 6'2", 200 pounds, 196 pounds. He was a 3-star again in the 2024 cycle. He played in 10 games for Utah in last season. And then Utah held their spring camp. He kind of came out of a shell. And he ended up, according to Utah's head coach, Kyle Whittingham, he had this to say. Zach Williams is becoming, if we had to play today, he's wide receiver 1. He's the guy making the most plays. He's getting open, running the best routes, catching the football clean, and is really dangerous after the catch. That's one of his main attributes, is after the catch, he can make some people miss and get some of that run after catch yardage. He's also very good on the jet sweeps. In fact, I'm pretty convinced that if we had to, he could play running back. He's got that natural ability with the ball in his hands. Boom! USC got another playmaker. All of a sudden now, your wide receiver room, you got Jacoby Lane, you got Makai Lemon. Those were 1A, 1B. Everyone's trying to figure out who's wide receiver 3. Jay Fair? Is it Prince Strong? Is it DJ Jordan? Jaden Richardson? Josiah Zamora? Corey Sims? Now you got Zacharias Williams coming in. All right, so that's who USC got out of the transfer portal over the weekend. The transfer portal window closed, but that doesn't mean USC is done. I don't know if they're going to get anybody else. They might take, they'll look for players, but they have to be the right fit. But right now, they filled a need. They got that. They got a guy who's got 3 more years of eligibility. And he was going to be Utah's #1 wide receiver this upcoming season. I'll take it. I'll take it. I also have one more segment to go. We're going to talk a little bit of recruiting. USC's momentum, it's not stopping. There is nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game, even a Laker game. They're down 3-1. I want to remind everybody, but every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. I've been to Laker playoff games. It's electric inside the arena. And with Game Time, you can be a part of that without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and it makes it easy to get playoff tickets, even when the demand is sky high. Here's why you're going to love using Game Time. Priority last-minute deals. You can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever. Up to 60% off if you wait to the last minute. And that also can give you, a little bit of peace of mind, because when you check out at Game Time, there's no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDON college for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. What if I told you that Kenai Pepe, Kobe's big little brother, he's actually his cousin. They call each other brothers, so I'm going to call them brothers. What if I told you that Kenai from IMG Academy is going to commit to USC? What if I told you that? You'd say, okay, I'll take it. Well, you better, because he is, and I think it's going to be soon. I think it's going to be real soon. And that's going to give USC one of their primary offensive tackle targets, get him in the fold. And he's not going to be the only one. I have a really good feeling that USC is in good shape for Malachi Lee. He was on campus. So with Kenai. They were on campus over the weekend. The other guy, Kevin Obit, the offensive tackle from Fruitland, Idaho. Yeah, both of them. It's not out of the question that USC is going to get all three. I also want you to remember this name. He was also on campus again. He's from Opelousas, Louisiana Catholic. That's the high school. I hope I pronounced Opelousas correctly. It's in Louisiana. Again, he's an on 300 player, wide receiver, Roderick Tazino. And he actually said USC is on top right now. So he's got USC over the home school, LSU, all those other SEC schools. Not bad. The 4-star Tazino was offered earlier this month by USC, so earlier in April. And he's made it to USC's campus twice in 3 weeks. It's easy to see why USC's on top. Quote, my visit was great. I had a good time being around all the coaches and the staff. Great hospitality, and they made me feel welcome, like at home. What excites me is that everything is just getting starting around there, and I think they're going to be doing some really big things here in the future, end quote. So USC, I think they're coming down. USC is going to be the school, but Houston can make, if they show that they want him really, really bad. There's another school that's after him. Kentucky, that's another school. It's getting interesting. LSU, where are they in that? And here's a nugget you're going to want to go over to wearesc.com when you're done watching this episode. Scott Schrader, he dropped this nugget. Check this out. There's a chance that one of USC's 2026 commits, well, he's trying to recommit for the 2025 class. I know who it is. I can't say it. What I find interesting is that I have no idea how long this has been in the works, but we're almost in the month of May. And summer classes at USC start in May. I don't know how they're going to make this happen. If they do, it's going to be fantastic. And I'm telling you, everyone, you're going to love it. You're going to like the player. Don't try and guess, because I'm not going to tell you anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But there's some strategy involved here. If this can happen, if they can pull this off, it's going to open up another slot for their 2026 recruiting cycle. You see USC working here. They're doing everything they can to make sure they're bringing in as much talent as possible. They're going to leave no stone unturned, right? Leave no man behind. So if you're one of the top players in California, they want to make sure they're making room for you. All right. That's it. That's a lot of information. I got a lot more, but we're going to hold that off till tomorrow's episode of Locked On USC. So, as you know, when you're done making Locked On USC your first listen every single day, don't forget, get on over there to wearec.com. That's the other place I'm working. We've got a $1 subscription special going on. $1 for a week. Check it all out. You're going to be hooked. All right. I'll be back again tomorrow with another episode. So until then, everyone, you know what to do.